Hello, welcome back to Soul Search Sunday with Johnny Tiger. The date is November 15th, 2020, and I am slightly intoxicated, so hopefully I'm not going to slur my words too much. But I just came home from spending night out for dinner and some beer with my best friends, Harvey and Maggie. It was a quiet evening out because of the pandemic, the new pandemic rules, the second wave and the lockdown and all that nonsense. The pub was relatively quiet, but that's okay. Make it easier to enjoy each other's company and actually hear what each other have to say anyway. I like spending time with Harvey and Maggie. We've been friends for going up to over 20 years, and perhaps more than just friends, as both of them have expressed to me one time or another when they got drunk uh, and emotional and mushy. Both of them, in their own way, saw me as their son. And I guess in a lot of ways, I see them as uh, parental figures as well. I left home very early on in my life. It seems like my entire childhood was about leaving home. When I was 9, I left my home in Taiwan and came to Canada, lived with people that hated me, wanted to abuse me and took advantage of me. I left my home in Taiwan, I left my mother, and I left my nanny Maru, who brought me up and treated me like I was her own son. And then when I was 11 years old, I left Canada, went back to Taiwan. I left the first the first girl I fell in love with and never saw her again after that. And then when I was 14, almost 15, I left Taiwan again. I left a whole bunch of good friends, good teachers, relatives, came back to Canada for the second time. And then when I was 16, 16 and a half, I left home and went to live in a foster home and then ran away from foster home shortly afterward, lived on the street for a while. And then when I was 17, almost 18, I left home for the last time and started living on my own as an independent young adult. Like I said, seems to me that my entire childhood was moving away from my parents, running away from home. And while a lot of people praised me for gaining independence at such an early age, especially in the blind community, people seem to think that independent is some kind of badge of honor. If you're independent, you're supposed to be like better than other blind people, and when you are viewed as least independent or less independent, you are viewed as inferior to other blind people. What total nonsense. But yeah, for my whole life, I've been praised as being one of the more, if not the most, independent blind person in the community. Struck out on my own before I was even 18. I have been making it on my own ever since. But honestly, there were many, many times that I would tell you that I wouldn't wish this kind of independence are my worst enemy. In fact, if if things were different, if I had a choice to not be so independent, I would probably gladly choose to be less independent and have my family's sheltering influence around me. Now, some people will say, well, yeah, but if your families were there to shelter you, then you wouldn't have the you wouldn't be such a good person as you are today. You wouldn't be so capable. You wouldn't be so independent. You wouldn't be so good at surviving. You wouldn't be so good at this and so good at that. You know what? I would say I would gladly trade a lot of what I do know how to do, for a stable family environment. Because because while I was trying to learn to be independent, there were a lot of things, a lot of hard lessons, a lot of pitfalls, a lot of stumbling blocks that I had to trip over, that I wish I never had to go through. I wish I would have learned them from being taught by a father who cared, or a mother who loved me enough to teach me these things. People who think that you can only learn life skills by being independent is a little bit misled. There are a lot of things that you don't have to learn by being independent. There are a lot of things that you can learn if you were in a good environment. I've known a lot of people who are outwardly viewed as being less independent than me, but they actually are just as capable or more capable than I am in many areas, just because they have a good, solid family connection, family background, backing them up, teaching them how to do things, rather than having to stumble along and learn through trials and errors and end up wasting a lot of money, wasting a lot of time. So, before I go into the main topic for today, I want to put this cautionary uh, PSA, I guess, out to parents, to relatives, to friends, to everybody, that if you think the only way to make so and so, to make your children, to make your friend, to make your younger sibling learn, if you think the only way to make them strong is to discard them and let them be independent, you may be setting them up for a lot of unnecessary hardship, because there are a lot of other ways to teach them things without casting them out, without letting them go through those hardships. There's a way to tell someone that the stove is hot without letting them burn their hand on it for the first time. Now, granted, if a person burns their hand on the stove, they'll learn right away not to touch it again forever and ever. But not everyone has to learn that way. And like I said, I wouldn't wish this kind of learning on my worst enemy. I wouldn't even wish it on myself. If there was a time machine, if I could be born in a slightly different circumstance, I would choose to be less independent, and I would choose to waste less time, to waste less money. Today I want to tell you about three hard lessons. There were a lot more, but we have to put a cap on it, of course. The three is a good number. Three hard lessons I had to learn on my own, on the way to grow up, on the way to become independent and self-sufficient. Self-sufficient. people ask me, how come a guy like you don't have a guide dog? As if there's a certain type of person that should have a guide dog. Again, as if that guide dog is a badge of honor, it's a mark of worthiness. As if you are blah 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 kind of person, you need to have a guide dog. You deserve to have a guide dog. And if you are this blah 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 kind of person, then you don't deserve to have a guide dog. It's a very demeaning, very discriminating way to view people with visual impairment. So people keep asking me, how come a guy like you who's so independent, who's so outgoing, who's go all over the world, don't have a guide dog? Well, I once upon a time tried to get a guide dog. Once upon a time, I really wanted a guide dog. When I was growing up, when I was going through high school, the guide dog was my dream. It was my holy grail. It was one of those things that I said, one day I'm going to grow up. I'm going to be so capable. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to have a guide dog. It was like, in line with the American dream. I wanted a wife, I wanted two kids, and I wanted a guide dog. It was high up on the wanted list like that when I was growing up. And then when I was settling down and when I was in university, I decided now was the time. Now I was independent. I was living on my own. I was doing very good with my work. I was doing very good with my school. It is time to go apply for a guide dog. The application process went really good. I was very independent. I was very capable, and I got a very beautiful 75-pound dog chosen to be my guide dog, and I flew off to California to train with this dog for the next 3 weeks. The training part of it was easy. I'm arrogant enough. I'm cocky enough to say it was easy. The training was a lot of. Some people said the training was hard, walking for miles every day. To me, I was in very good shape. To me, I loved walking around. I loved the dog. I loved the workout. To me, the training was easy. Getting up early to feed the dog, to clean the dog was easy. Having to take the dog out for walks every day was easy. I was passing my training with flying color. I was the one student. I wasn't the highest mark student, but I was at least the second highest mark in my entire training group. But I made a very big error, the kind of error that only a young and arrogant and self-assured fool would make. I was fighting, arguing with the head trainer every day. I'm not going to give you the name of the school or the name of the trainer because that's not what this is about. Suffice to say, the head trainer rubbed me the wrong way on my first day there. I remember even to this day, the first day when we arrived at the training center and met the head trainer, and the head trainer gave us this big welcome speech. Welcome you all to our program. You should feel proud of yourself to be part of this program because this program only takes the best of the best, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. And then the head trainer he said, you must realize that while you are here, I am the law. My words are the laws, and what I say, you obey. When I say jump, you ask how high. Now, keep in mind, I was like 21 years old at the time, and I was very, well, relatively successful for my age. I've been through a lot. I was extremely independent. I was fiercely proud of what I could do. So I think the moment he said that, he said his words were law and I must obey him. that was pretty much it. In my head, I decided that no, you're not the boss of me. You are a head trainer in a guide dog school. I am a descendant of a proud Taiwanese family, a generations of proud Taiwanese warrior. I came from a family that spent millions of dollars a night. I like okay, no, that's basically what was going through my head. You guys can get the gist. Now I was resentful. I got rebellious. So from that day, from the first day forward, I would listen to him. I would listen to the trainer, no problem, during training. But outside of training, anything outside of training, anything that was not official rule, I would fight him tooth and nail. Uh, when he said the rule was no fraternization with the opposite gender at the school, I would constantly skate so close to breaking that rule while remaining on the right side of the rule book. Uh, I would make it so the ladies would fraternize with me while I myself stay polite but distant. I would do a lot of little, make a lot of little gesture like that just to annoy the guy. In my head, in my head, I had the belief there's nothing you can do to me because I am right. I'm not breaking any rule, and I am one of the highest. I have one of the highest mark in class. There's nothing you can do. Na 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 na. The day before graduation, the day before we were going to come home with our dog, the guy called me into his office and he said, I have decided that you are not suitable for a dog. I'm sending you home without a dog. Just like that. No argument, no reason or rhyme, no room for appeal. Just like that. I was devastated. I was heartbroken. I was so angry at the entire world. How can something like this happen? How can something like this happen? And I came home confused and angry. My best friend Kevin picked me up at the airport and he asked me what happened. How come you don't have a dog? I told him everything that I just told you here. And Kevin, without a trace of sympathy, said to me, he said, well, I guess you learned a lesson there. You deserve what you got. Or, in your case, you deserve what you didn't get. I was angry. I said, what do you mean? You're supposed to be my good friend. How can you say that when I'm already so angry, so sad, so depressed? He said, because you were being an idiot. Because you forgot what you were there for. And you forgot who was in charge. Who was in charge? That hit me over the head like a thunderclap because he was right. I forgot. No one taught me up till that point. No one taught me that just being right is not enough. Just being good is not enough. You have to know your place. You got to remember your place. No one in my family, not my father, not my mother, not my teachers, ever taught me that. I had to learn this the hard way. So I came home without a dog, and I never tried for a dog again after that. Because soon after, a few years after this, I realized that I don't need a dog, that I don't need a guide dog to prove that I'm successful or good or worthy. Another such experience that I had to learn things the hard way was on my third year of college, when I was just transferring into university. Now, just so you guys understand what I'm talking about, when you're blind person, especially back then, going to university, going to college is a very, very difficult, very tedious thing. Most people who have eyesight, you go to university, the professor tell you what book you want to get, and then what textbook, what material he's going to use, she's going to use. You go to the library, you go online and buy it, and that's that. For a blind person, it involves trying to get the information from the professor 3 or 4 months prior to taking his or her class, and then go get a book, and then go get that book translated into recorded book, audio book, or braille book, and you got to hire someone to do that. Like, it's not cheap. And then you got to hope that after you finally go and have that done, the professor doesn't change their mind at the last minute, which happened to me at this very instant. Uh, 4 months before the class, I asked the professor which books I was going to need, and he told me which books we're going to need. I went and tracked down a book, and I hired someone. I applied for a grant to hire someone to do the books. And then when the person got the book done, then suddenly the professor decided we are not going to use these books, we're going to use other books instead. It was a massive jumble of chaos and very unpleasant thing going on. I was falling behind in my class because I didn't have my books. But that's not what was the worst of this experience. The worst of this experience was when the school gave me the grant to go hire someone to transpose these books onto tape. It was, I remember it was a French Canadian lady that we hired, and she was constantly drunk and very difficult to deal with. But I thought, it was okay as long as she could give me the book on time. And she did. She brought the finished product over to me the night before the deadline. And she was drunk, and she was not feeling very good. So I took the book, I paid her the money, and I told her to go home and rest. I never, until that point, until a week later, realized that I needed to get a receipt from her. I never, in my wildest dream, imagined that she would go to the college and told them I didn't pay her. Something that never happened to me in my life. And honestly, up to that point, no one in my life ever told me that I needed to get a receipt when I pay someone money. Like in my naivete, in my very innocent world, was you gave me the product, I give you the money. That's that. That's the end of this story. That's the end of this chapter. That's the end of this transaction. I never thought anything like that would happen, that she would go to the school and tell them I didn't pay her. And because I didn't have a receipt from her, I ended up having to cough up the money to pay the school back. I had to learn this the hard way. And this was something that I believe that if I wasn't on my own, I wasn't living on my own, if I wasn't from a family that didn't teach me much of anything, that I could have avoided this unpleasantness. Last but not least, when I first finished my degree and started doing counseling, like many, many young counselors, I thought that my clients would be different. I thought that I would be different. I thought that all those other cases we hear about how other counselors screw their clients over or how other counselors get screwed by their client, I thought that wasn't going to be me. I thought that I knew what I was doing. I was smart, I was young, I was capable, I was knowledgeable. It was about a week before Christmas, and one of my clients who was native Indian, Aboriginal, Native American, whatever you call it, First Nation. I don't know what the current PC term was. She was native, okay? She was native. And when she came to the counseling session, she said she was so sad that it's going to be Christmas soon, but she didn't have any way to contact her family live, that lived in Alberta, which was a different province here in Canada. She didn't have cell phone. She didn't even have money for a house phone. She didn't have any way to call her mom and dad, talk to them on Christmas. In my young eagerness to do good for the world, I handed her my cell phone. I said, "Look, here's my cell phone. Call your parent. I have nationwide calling, and so that shouldn't cost anything. Take the cell phone, call your parents, call your family, have a good Christmas, and give me my phone back after Christmas." I was so naive and so dumb that I thought that a good gesture like that would be met with kindness or gratitude. I never saw her again. I never saw my phone again. What I saw was in January a phone bill for almost $1,800. She made calls all over North America, outside the country. And when I reported that to the police, all I got out of the police was she's now back on reservation, so she's out of their jurisdiction. The only two things I could do was either pay the phone bill or hire a lawyer to sue her myself. It took me years, almost 9 years, to sort out that big phone bill. Again, I would like to think that if I wasn't so independent, if I had someone by my side that could smack me on the back of the head and said, "No, don't lend out your cell phone to your client, no matter how sad they are." If I had someone beside me and smacked me on the back of the head and said, "No, don't backtalk your guide dog trainer, no matter how right you are." If I had someone beside me, if I had my mom, my dad, or uncle, or grandmother, or whoever, if I had someone to smack me on the back of the head and said, "No, you need to get a receipt every time you give someone money," then these three incidences wouldn't have been so traumatizing. So in the end, I want to say again to people who think that by letting someone be independent is good for them. It may be, but you are setting them up for a lot of silly, silly, silly traumatic events that could have been prevented if you just were there to give them that little nudge in the right direction. And for those people who are striking out to be independent, who want to be independent, all I can say is good luck, and please, when you are not sure about something, ask questions, ask your elders, ask for advices from people who might have been through this situation before you rush in headlong, and maybe, just maybe, you may be able to bypass a lot of these unpleasant experiences. Thank you for checking out today's Soul Search Sunday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Music Monday. And now, have a good night.